So I decided to quote the most trusted dictionary, in my opinion, Webster's. Creationism is a doctrine or theory holding that matter, the various forms of life, that the world was created by God out of nothing and usually in the way described in Genesis. Now that we know what creationism is, let's see what evolutionism is defined as. Evolutionism, descent with modification from pre-existing species, cumulative inherited change in a population of organisms through time, leading to the appearance of new forms. The process by which new species or populations of living things develop from pre-existing forms through successive generations. Those are the two. Now that we know what they both are, I'll start to defend my case. I decided to use the best book, in my personal opinion, the Bible. Right? It's a great reference book for the topic of creation. This shows who created us, how he created us, and why he created us. Here are some of the verses I will be using. Genesis 1:1-2. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I'm gonna read every single one, or just give you the.
Yeah. You can go over it briefly, but yeah, I prefer you to give all your points because they're learning more than you're talking to me. I want you guys to, because again, you're gonna have to defend your faith someday to someone who's probably smarter than you, and I want you to have that,
Yeah. Oh. Okay. John 1:1-3. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything that was made. That's a weird way to say it. Colossians 1:16. For by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things were created through him and for him. Revelation 4:11. Worthy are you, our Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they existed and were created. Those are my few Bible verses that shows that God was a creator and he created all things. Alright, you may be an evolutionist, and maybe you don't believe that God exists, or you don't think that the Bible is a very good way to go about creation and evolutionism. Here's some points that you cannot deny. I'm going to quote a Bible verse and then show you scientific information that actually helps the Bible verse out. Okay. All right. First one is John 1:1-3. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything that was made. My first point is your organs. In 1865, I do not know how to say this last name, Robert Wadersheim claimed that 185 of your organs are useless, and that was an evidence for evolution. There are two things that deny that fact. One is that evolution states that you are evolving, not devolving. Organs do not have anything to do. Organs that don't have anything to do means that they are dying or they can't work at all. That would completely disprove that you're evolving. It would show that you're devolving.
That's good.
You should be able to find new organs that would help us while we're evolving for the new climates, for new places and stuff like that. I should be able to see a pair of wings on somebody because that would help them evolve for their climate. That obviously didn't happen. The second one is that all 185 that he wrote down that are useless have been proved useful in some way or another. And some of them have actually been seen as the most useful organs, even though he thought that they weren't even relevant. So before the topic was even discussed, that was disproved by science, modern science. Second verse, Genesis 1:27. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. My second point is similarities between different animals that could cause evolutionists to think that we came from those animals. To see that many animals have similar structures and physiques does not mean that we are all the same or we have evolved. It actually proves that there is a creator because of this earth. We all drink the same water, we all eat the same types of food, and we all live in the same environment / earth. So our Creator would have to shape us in a way to be able to eat and live around the same things. So whenever you see all these different animals that have similarities to us, or vice versa, it's because we are made by the same Creator. It's not because we are the same. And then last but not least, and when you
That's
look
a
up
really good point. Did you guys hear that? I want you to say that again. Say that one more time.
the whole,
No, about the Creator.
when you see that we all look the same, it's not because we are the same, it's because we have the same Creator.
Boom. That's really good. Very good.
And then
Because
last-
if that's a good argument too. Because listen, if we just evolved from whatever, like a stupid cell, we would all look very different, right? Some of us would still be animals. Some of us would still, right? We would have talking animals. Why do we not have talking animals? Because God created it that way, right? We're above the animals. That was a really, really good point.
I decided to use Genesis 1:27. God created mankind in his own image to explain that he had created the animals first, and then he had created mankind. And it wasn't in the image of the animals, it was in his own image. So, and then last but not least, when you look up to the sky and see the sun, the moon, and the stars, all the heavenly array, do not be enticed into bowing down to them and worshiping things the Lord your God has apportioned to the nations under heaven. My last point is about the sun and the moon. The sun is approximately 92.181 million miles away. If the sun were to be a mile closer or a mile farther, the earth would either dry up or freeze. And the moon is 238,855 miles away from the earth. If it were to move a mile in any direction, it would come out of orbit from the Earth's gravitational pull. This just shows us that there's a Creator that precisely places everything where it needs to be. That's my argument.
Very good, very good. My only argument that I say that someone could make, and this is from like a medical standpoint, does anybody have their appendix out in here? Did anybody have appendix removal? Do you know what an appendix is? Have you ever heard of the word appendix?
I thought you were meaning like out, like, yeah, here it is, like.
Oh, no, like taken out. I have had mine taken out. I'm still living, breathing, functioning, somewhat. And I don't really have any massive health issues. Sorry, not away. Okay. That is something that doctors have deemed is unnecessary to our body to survive. Also gallbladder, I don't have a gallbladder either. I've lost a lot of organs because of pregnancy. I've had that removed as well. And that's another organ that we don't necessarily need. It is important, but we don't need it. So when you said if we were to not necessarily need an organ anymore, that would be devolving. I would make an argument that that is evolving, because what happened, so right now, we live in a very sanitary environment, okay? When we consume foods, when we go out to eat, we're washing our hands, we're careful with what we consume. Right now in Africa, there is a disease going around in the Congo because a couple of kids ate a bat, okay? They have spread it to 500 people, and there's people dying from it. They ate a bat from the woods. That's where Ebola came from. It's not smart to eat uncooked meat. It's just not. So we've evolved in that way, not saying evolution, I'm just saying we've evolved to understand that germs are dangerous. Well, the appendix is a part of the immune system. So when God created us, it could have been that the appendix was necessary to kill off bad things within the gut. So you know how when you eat, it goes to your intestines? Well, the appendix shoots out immune cells into the intestines. They've just proven that within the last year, because no one knew what the appendix was for. So that is actually an evolving thing. I believe that God was smart enough to know that we would evolve, that our ability to understand what hurts us and what doesn't would evolve, right? In the Old Testament, we couldn't eat pork. Do you guys know why?
Because it was unclean.
It's the most unclean meat there is. It's not necessarily great for you, and it was the most unclean. Right now, God said, you can eat anything you want. It's clean, right? Because he cleansed it when he died on the cross. So my argument to that would be, because someone in the medical community would say now that the appendix was a part of evolving. that you needed the appendix back then, but you don't now, and now it's not necessary. Some children now are being born without one. That's crazy. There's not a human ever alive that was not born without an appendix. And now there's some children that are being born without one because their parents don't have one or the genetic code just isn't there anymore. Isn't that crazy? I believe God's smart enough for that. But that was fantastic, Leilani. That was amazing. Amazing.